You fear being alone because you haven't met yourself yet. Think about that for a moment. Not the idea of being alone, the actual feeling, that hollow ache in your chest when your phone doesn't light up, that panic when you're without plans on a Friday night, that desperate scroll through social media at 3 in the morning looking for proof that you matter to someone, that weight that sits on your shoulders when you realize you haven't had a real conversation with anyone in days. That voice in your head that whispers, you're too much, you're not enough, you're forgettable, you don't belong. You know that feeling, don't you? And here's the brutal truth. Nobody tells you. That feeling isn't telling you that you need more people. It's telling you that you've never actually met the person you're searching for. And that person is you. You spend so long chasing approval from others that you become a stranger to yourself. You know what people want from you. You can predict their needs before they speak them. You've become a master at being what others need you to be. But ask yourself right now in this exact moment, do you know who you are when nobody's watching? Do you know what you actually want apart from the validation of others? Do you know your own voice? Or have you spent so long mimicking the voice others wanted to hear that you've forgotten what yours sounds like? This is the loneliness that kills people. Not the loneliness of being physically alone, the loneliness of being surrounded by people and still not knowing yourself. The loneliness of performing a version of yourself so convincingly that you've lost track of the original. The loneliness of seeking connection with others while running away from connection with yourself. You came into this world alone. You will leave this world alone. Everything in between is the journey of learning who you actually are. But instead, you've been running from that journey. You've been filling every silent moment with noise. You've been avoiding solitude like it's a disease, when actually solitude is the medicine. Let me be clear about something. There's a difference between loneliness and solitude. Loneliness is pain. It's the feeling of being disconnected, rejected, unseen. Loneliness is what you feel when you're in a room full of people and nobody really knows you. Solitude is different. Solitude is power. It's the space where you meet yourself. It's where you remember your own voice. It's where you discover what you actually believe, what you actually want, what you're actually here to do. Solitude is the birthplace of every great thing that's ever been created. But you've been taught to fear solitude. You've been programmed to believe that being alone is a failure. That if you're not constantly surrounded by people, constantly busy, constantly producing, constantly proving yourself, then you're wasting your life. So you run. You run toward relationships that don't serve you. You run toward jobs that don't fulfill you. You run toward people who drain you. You run toward anything that will make you feel less alone, even if that thing is slowly destroying you. And in all that running, you've forgotten something essential. You are not designed to be completed by another person. You're not half of a whole looking for your other half. You're a whole being, designed with intention, built with purpose, created to become something specific and singular and true. Nobody else can do that work for you. No amount of likes or followers or text messages can do that work. That work is yours alone to do. Here's what I want you to understand about yourself. You are like a seed. A seed doesn't become a tree in a garden surrounded by other seeds. A seed becomes a tree underground, in darkness, in pressure, in isolation. The seed doesn't fight the darkness. The seed doesn't try to grow in the light where everyone can see it sprouting. The seed grows where nobody sees it. In the underground, in the dark, in the silence. That's where the root system develops. That's where the foundation is built. And only when that foundation is complete, when the root system has grown deep and strong, only then does the seed break through the surface and become visible to the world. You're still trying to bloom in the wrong season. You're trying to be a finished tree when you're still a seed. You're comparing your underground phase to someone else's blooming phase. You're looking at people who have already broken through the surface and asking yourself why you're not there yet. And because you don't understand what stage you're in, you're trying to skip it. You're trying to force growth that isn't ready. You're trying to be seen before you've even built a foundation. The loneliness you're feeling might not be a sign that something's wrong with you. It might be a sign that you're exactly where you need to be. It might be the pressure that's designed to build your foundation. It might be the darkness that's teaching your roots how to reach deeper. It might be the very thing you've been running from that's actually trying to make you think about how things are actually made. Think about a blade. A blade doesn't become sharp by avoiding pressure. A blade becomes sharp by being pressed against stone over and over and over again. The friction that seems like destruction is actually refinement. The pressure that seems like punishment is actually precision. Every stroke against the stone is making the blade more itself, not less. The blade doesn't say to the stone, "Why are you hurting me? Why can't I just be dull and comfortable?" No, the blade understands something deeper. This friction is my purpose. This pressure is my calling. This is how I become what I'm meant to be. You're in that friction right now. And instead of understanding what's happening, you're running from it. You're interpreting the pressure as rejection. You're interpreting the silence as abandonment. You're interpreting solitude as failure. But what if it's actually the opposite? What if the silence is an invitation? What if the solitude is a sanctuary? What if the pressure is precision? There's a lion cub in the African savannah. The mother lion doesn't keep the cub close to protect it. The mother knows something the cub doesn't understand yet. The mother knows that the cub has a lion's heart inside it, but the cub doesn't know that yet, so the mother pushes the cub away. She makes the cub hunt alone. She makes the cub find food in an empty landscape. She makes the cub face the darkness by itself. And the cub cries. The cub feels abandoned. The cub believes the mother doesn't love it anymore. But the mother is doing the most loving thing. She's refusing to let the cub believe it's something less than a lion. The cub has to meet itself in that isolation. The cub has to discover the roar that's inside it. The cub has to learn that it's not weak. It's not fragile. It's not meant to depend on others forever. The cub is meant to be fierce and free and fully itself. And that can only happen when the cub is alone. You need to discover your roar. And that roar only comes when you stop running toward other people's voices and start listening to your own. This is what I've come to understand about the human heart. We are all manufacturers. We all create. We all build things. Even if it's just the daily version of ourselves we present to the world. But here's the thing about manufacturing. If you don't know the original design, you'll never create anything true. You'll just create copies of copies. You create something that looks good on the surface but has no real foundation. You create something that serves everyone except yourself. Before anything is made, someone had to design it. Before you were born, you were designed. There was a purpose behind your creation. There was an intention. You weren't an accident. You weren't created to be a copy of someone else. You were created to be specifically, uniquely, powerfully yourself. But here's the problem. You're trying to be who everyone else needs you to be instead of who you were actually designed to be. And that's why you feel empty even when you're surrounded by people. Think about a river. A river doesn't flow toward other rivers. A river flows toward the ocean. A river has one direction, one purpose. A river doesn't stop and say, wait, what if I should be flowing toward that lake instead? What if I should be a different kind of water? What if I should flow in multiple directions to please everyone? No. A river knows what it is. A river knows where it's going. And because it knows that, it has power. It moves mountains. It carves canyons. It sustains entire ecosystems. Because a river is committed to its own path, not everyone else's path. You are like that river. You have a current inside you. You have a direction. You have a destination. But because you've spent so long trying to be what others want, you've dammed up that current. You've blocked your own flow. You've tried to make yourself into many things for many people, and now you're stagnant You become water that goes nowhere, serves nothing, becomes nothing. The pain you're feeling is your own current trying to break through the dam. Listen to me very carefully. The season of isolation you're in might be the most important season of your life. This might be the season where you stop performing and start becoming. This might be the season where you stop seeking approval and start seeking truth. This might be the season where you finally meet yourself. Years ago, there was a man who built beautiful pottery. He was known throughout the region for his work. People would come from distant places just to buy one of his pieces. But the man was miserable. He had everything people said would make him happy. Success, recognition, customers, money, but he felt empty. So one day he closed his shop and went into isolation. He went to a small cottage in the mountains, and for 1 year he didn't create anything for anyone but himself. He made pots that nobody saw. He built vessels that served no market. He created from a place of pure intention, not for approval. And in that year of solitude, he discovered something. His work became infinitely better. Not because he was trying harder, but because he had finally stopped trying to be what others wanted and started creating what was actually true inside him. When he returned to society after that year, his work had transformed. People could feel the difference. They could feel the authenticity. They could feel that these pieces came from a man who knew himself, not a man who was chasing someone else's dream. And the irony, more people wanted his work than ever before. But that wasn't why he made it anymore. He made it because it was true. You need that year, you need that solitude, you need that season of creating. For nobody but yourself. You need to do work that nobody sees, that nobody validates, that nobody gives you credit for, just to remember what it feels like to do something because it's true. Not because it's impressive, not because it will get you approval, but because it's real. Before I continue, I want you to answer something honestly. Just sit with this question for a moment. Here it is. If nobody would ever know, if you would never receive credit, if you would never get validation from anyone, what would you actually want to do with your life? What would you create? What would you become? Who would you be if you were completely invisible to everyone? Don't answer quickly. Sit with it. Because if you can't answer that question, it means you haven't met yourself yet. If you're still listening to this, if you're still here, something inside you is waking up. Something inside you is recognizing the truth in these words. Something inside you is tired of running and ready to turn around and face yourself. Let me tell you what happens when you finally do that. Let me tell you what happens when you stop chasing people and start discovering yourself. First, the fear changes. The fear of being alone transforms. It becomes something different. It becomes less about rejection and more about responsibility. Because when you meet yourself, you realize something. You're responsible for your own life. You can't blame other people for your emptiness anymore. You can't blame them for your lack of direction. You can't blame them for your unfulfilled potential. It's on you now. And yes, that's terrifying. But it's also liberating, because it means you have power. It means you're not a victim of circumstance. It means you can actually do something about it. Second, your relationships change. They become honest. They become real, because you're no longer performing. You're no longer trying to be what they need you to be. You're showing up as who you actually are. And something beautiful happens. The relationships that were based on performance fall away, and the ones that are based on authenticity deepen. You attract people who love the real you, not the version you were performing. And you stop wasting energy trying to convince people to stay who don't want to be with the authentic version of you anyway. Third, your work changes. Your contribution to the world becomes powerful, because you're not trying to fit into everyone else's vision anymore. You're creating from your own design, your own purpose, your own calling. And when you do that, you create things that matter, things that are needed, things that only you can create, because you're the only one who knows the specific version of yourself that you're trying to express. But here's what most people don't understand. Before any of that happens, you have to be willing to be uncomfortable. You have to be willing to spend time alone with yourself. Even though it feels like dying, you have to be willing to sit with your own pain, your own fear, your own emptiness without running away. You have to be willing to fail in front of yourself without an audience to impress. You have to be willing to be nobody for a while so that you can become somebody real. Most people aren't willing to do that. Most people would rather stay in pain with other people than face themselves in solitude. Most people would rather have fake connection than no connection. Most people would rather perform than be authentic. Most people would rather stay small and admired than be big and misunderstood. Most people aren't willing to pay the price of becoming real. But you're still listening. You're still here. So maybe you're willing. Maybe something inside you has had enough. Maybe you're tired of pretending. Maybe you're ready for the real journey to begin. Let me tell you what a forest knows that you're forgetting. A forest doesn't grow by seeking sunlight. A forest grows by sending its roots deeper. The deepest roots create the strongest trees. The trees that have gone deepest underground are the ones that can withstand the strongest storms. The trees that have developed in solitude are the ones that have the most to offer the forest. And a forest is more beautiful because some of its trees grew in silence, unseen, building their strength in the darkness. You're supposed to be in the forest. You're supposed to be growing silently. You're supposed to be building your foundation while nobody's watching. You're not failing right now. You're building. You're not broken right now. You're becoming. You're not insignificant right now. You're developing the significance that will matter when you finally emerge. This is the secret that nobody tells you about success, about fulfillment, about happiness. It doesn't come from being seen. It comes from becoming real. It doesn't come from being loved by many people. It comes from being true to yourself. It doesn't come from external validation. It comes from internal alignment. When what you do matches who you are, when your life reflects your actual values, when your choices are based on your own direction instead of other people's expectations, that's when you feel alive. That's when you feel powerful. That's when you feel like yourself. And you can't have any of that while you're running toward other people. You have to turn around. You have to face yourself. You have to walk into the solitude that terrifies you. Because on the other side of that terror is your actual life. Think about something. What if the people you've been chasing don't actually have what you need? What if they can't give you what you're looking for? What if you've been asking them to fill a hole that only you can fill? What if the approval you're seeking from them can never be as complete as the approval you can give yourself? What if that's why you feel so empty even when you're getting what you thought you wanted? There's a phrase that haunts me. Good is the enemy of great. But I want to add something to that. Good is also the enemy of right. You can spend your whole life doing good things, being in good relationships, having a good job, living a good life, all while never actually doing what's right for you, all while never pursuing what's actually true for you, all while never becoming who you're actually meant to be. You can be so good, so liked, so admired, so successful by everyone else's standards, and still wake up one day realizing you've wasted your life being someone else. I want to tell you about another man. This man had a successful career. He had a respectable position. He had people who depended on him. He had accomplishments that looked impressive on paper, but he was miserable. And one day, in the middle of his life, he realized something. He had built a beautiful prison. Every success was another bar. Every relationship was another lock. Every responsibility was another chain. He was safe, yes. He was secure, yes. He was appreciated, yes. But he wasn't free. He wasn't alive. He was existing, not living. So he did something radical. He walked away. Not dramatically, not recklessly, but deliberately. He chose to lose the approval of people in order to find the approval of himself. He chose to lose the security of a known life in order to find the truth of an authentic one. And in the first year, it was excruciating. He had no idea if he'd made the right choice. He had no external validation. He had no proof that he was doing the right thing. He only had his own conviction that he had to be true to himself. But somewhere in that second year, something shifted. He stopped waiting for permission. He stopped looking for proof. He stopped needing other people to tell him he'd made the right choice. He became his own validator. And from that place, he created something beautiful. Not something that everyone liked, but something that was true. Something that reflected who he actually was. And interestingly, that authentic thing attracted more genuine people than his impressive performances ever did. The cost of becoming real is losing the approval of people who loved your performance. But the gain is finding people who love your truth, and more importantly, finding yourself. You grow in silence. You heal in silence. You rise in silence. The growth that matters doesn't happen on social media. The healing that actually works doesn't happen through external validation. The rising that's real doesn't come from other people lifting you up. It comes from you deciding that you're worth lifting. It comes from you deciding that your own life matters more than other people's opinions about your life. It comes from you finally choosing yourself. And yes, that sounds selfish. You've been taught to believe that choosing yourself is selfish. You've been taught that self-sacrifice is virtuous. You've been taught that the height of morality is giving yourself away to others. But I'm going to tell you something different. You cannot pour from an empty cup. You cannot give authenticity while you're performing. You cannot love others while you're abandoning yourself. The most selfish thing you can do is destroy yourself trying to save other people. The most loving thing you can do is save yourself first. This is what I wish someone had told me early in my life. Your loneliness might not be a flaw. Your need for solitude might not be a weakness. Your resistance to constant connection might not be a problem. Some of the most powerful, most creative, most purposeful people in history were deeply solitary. They didn't apologize for it. They didn't fight it. They understood it as part of their design. They used it. They let it shape them into who they needed to be. There's a difference between someone who is alone and someone who is lonely. A lonely person is surrounded by people but feels disconnected. A solitary person is by themselves and feels complete. The goal isn't to never be alone. The goal is to become someone who is comfortable being alone. Someone who doesn't need others to validate their existence. Someone who can sit with themselves without running away. When you reach that place, something remarkable happens. You become actually available for real connection. Because you're not seeking connection to fill a void. You're seeking connection because you want to share who you are, not because you need someone to tell you who you are. You're not clinging to people out of fear. You're choosing people out of alignment. And that changes everything about the quality of your relationships. But you have to get there first. You have to spend time alone. You have to face yourself. You have to discover what you actually believe, what you actually want, what you actually stand for. You have to become a whole person, not a half looking for completion. This is non-negotiable. This is the work that cannot be skipped. Let me ask you this. What if the season you're in right now is actually the season of your greatest becoming? What if this loneliness is the invitation to meet yourself? What if this silence is the space where your purpose is waiting to reveal itself? What if this is not the worst thing that could happen to you, but the best thing? Because think about it. If you were surrounded by people all the time, if you were constantly being validated, if you never had to face your own thoughts, if you never had to sit with your own pain, would you ever grow? Would you ever change? Would you ever become more than you are? Probably not. Comfort doesn't create growth. Ease doesn't create strength. Connection without solitude creates dependency, not power. But isolation with purpose creates something different. Solitude with intention creates something different. The wilderness creates something different. When you're forced to face yourself, when you're forced to find your own answers, when you're forced to source your own validation, you discover something about yourself you never knew. You're much stronger than you thought. You're much more capable than you believed. You're much more complete than you ever imagined. The world will try to convince you otherwise. The world will tell you that you need more followers, more likes, more attention, more proof. The world will tell you that your value depends on what other people think. The world will try to keep you small and dependent and desperate for approval, but the world is lying to you. Your value is not determined by what other people think. Your value is inherent. Your value is built into your design. You were created with worth. You were made with purpose. You were born with a specific role to play in this world that only you can play, because you're the only one who is exactly you. But nobody can convince you of that. You have to discover it yourself. In the silence, in the solitude, in the dark night of the soul, when you're not running anymore, and you finally have to face what's actually inside you. And what's inside you is magnificent. What's inside you is powerful. What's inside you is desperately needed by this world. But you have to meet it first. You have to close the noise. You have to step away from the crowd. You have to turn off the validation machine. You have to sit in the dark with nothing but yourself and the truth. And you have to be willing to let that encounter change you, because it will. It will crack open everything you thought you knew about yourself. It will destroy every false identity you've been wearing. It will shatter every permission you were waiting for from others. It will be painful. It will be disorienting. It will make you question everything. But on the other side of that destruction is reconstruction. On the other side of that shattering is wholeness. On the other side of that pain is freedom. You are standing at a crossroads right now. You can keep running. You can keep chasing. You can keep performing. You can keep seeking approval. You can keep dying slowly while everyone tells you you live in a good life. That's one option. Or you can turn around. You can face yourself. You can spend time in the wilderness of your own heart. You can discover who you actually are underneath everything you've been pretending to be. You can become real. You can become whole. You can become yourself. The first option is easier. The second option is everything. Most people will choose the first option. Most people will keep running. Most people would rather have the comfort of a known pain than the uncertainty of unknown growth. Most people are willing to live a lie if it means they don't have to face the truth about themselves, but not you. Not if you're still here. Not if you're still listening. Something in you is already awake. Something in you is already calling you toward yourself. Something in you knows that there's more to life than this endless chasing, this endless performing, this endless seeking of approval. Listen to that voice. It's your own voice. It's been trying to reach you for so long, hidden under all the noise, buried under all the expectations, muted by all the people you've been trying to be. It's been there all along, calling you home to yourself. And the home it's calling you to is waiting. It's been waiting your entire life. Your purpose is waiting. Your power is waiting. Your authentic life is waiting. Your real voice is waiting. Your true identity is waiting. All you have to do is stop running and turn around. All you have to do is be willing to be alone long enough to meet yourself. All you have to do is choose yourself. This is the most important choice you will ever make. More important than any relationship, more important than any job, more important than any achievement. This choice to finally come home to yourself is the choice that will determine everything else about your life. Choose solitude over performance. Choose truth over approval. Choose yourself over everyone else's expectations. Choose the wilderness that leads to freedom over the garden that leads to captivity. Choose authenticity over admiration. Choose becoming over staying small. This is your moment. This is your invitation. This is your calling. The lion is roaring inside you. The seed is ready to break through. The blade is being sharpened. The river is ready to flow. Your purpose is ready to be born. Your authentic self is ready to emerge. Your real life is ready to begin. But only if you stop running. Only if you turn around. Only if you're willing to spend time alone with yourself and actually listen to what's been trying to reach you all this time. If this message spoke to your heart today, if something in you recognizes the truth of these words, then I want to ask you to do something. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Share it with someone who's been running just like you have. Share it with someone who's been chasing approval and forgot to chase themselves. Because the world is full of people who are lonely in crowds. The world is full of people performing their way through life. The world is full of people who have forgotten how to be themselves. And maybe, just maybe, someone you know needs to hear this today. And if this resonated with you, if you want more messages that help you grow your soul, that call you home to yourself, that remind you of who you actually are underneath all the noise, then subscribe. Because your journey has just begun. The real journey. The one where you finally meet yourself and everything changes after that. This is not the end of your story. This is the beginning. This is where you stop chasing and start